I'm Carla Lacey, and as the CEO of the Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute, also known as BUEI, I have the pleasure and honor of leading the talented team who are responsible for bringing you this special presentation. As the pandemic continues to impact our lives at times and in ways we least expect, one constant we can turn to is our ability to learn something new about the world around us and about ourselves. But sometimes, when it's hard to make sense of all the things that are outside of our control, we just want to have some fun. So for the next 40 minutes, let's have some fun and learn something new. We're going on an adventure, and you're invited along. And the best part? You already have all you need for this journey. Your amazing imagination, a desire to learn something new, and your incredible creativity. That's it. Oh, and a great crew to travel with. Here's BUEI's Director of Education, Julie Steele, to get this adventure started.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's so great to see that so many of our friends have joined us. I know that we're not together in person, but we're so glad that all of you could come together today. I want to introduce you to one other crew member. You're going to see a few of us today, but my next person that I want to introduce you to is Braxton. Is Braxton there? Can you say hello?
Everybody. How you doing?
There's Braxton. All right, so Braxton's going to be helping me today and helping our Hannahs and everyone else on our crew to see what you want to ask and any answers that you have while we're going along on our voyage. So today's voyage is our second. We had one on Monday and some of you participated in that. We're welcome back if this is your second time, but if this is your first time to join us, welcome. We are going on a special adventure and we're going to learn all about navigation. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started right here. Let's see. And, oh, hold on one second. Got to share. All right, now we can do this. All right, so if you joined us on Monday, you'll know that we started out with a question. Those of you that are on Zoom can answer in the chat box. If you're joining us with Facebook Live or with CITV, don't worry, you can participate as well, but you might be sharing your answers to a family member at home. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first thing. I want you to see if you can find your spot on the map. So everybody take a look. You might know which parish you live in. If you live in the city of Hamilton, there's a letter A, and then also if you live in the town of St. George, there's the letter B. But if you want to type into the chat box which number corresponds to the parish that you live in, or type your parish, you can put that in, and let's see if we can get this going. So looking on the map, can you figure out where you live? You might have to ask somebody at home, if you're not sure. I live in number 6, Devonshire. Okay, give me one more minute, or a few more seconds actually, because we've got plenty of things to see. All right, so Braxton, are there any numbers in there?
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of numbers.
All right, people from all over the place?
All over, nice little
All
spread.
right. So, so now I'm going to ask you another question. Does that mean that you live in which direction? So if you look on there, you will see something that will orient you into which direction. So if you know which number is your parish, maybe it'll help you to tell whether you are an East Ender, a West Ender, maybe you're kind of central, maybe you live on the south or the north. So that's my next question. The next part is going to be something active. I want you to stand up where you are, and I want you to get ready with your finger to point north. So first of all, here are the 4 directions on a compass: north, east, south, and west. Can anybody point north? Is north up here? No, north is never up. It's actually a direction going in one way or another. So you would have to go here, 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 here. But sometimes it's really hard to know. Like I'm in a room with no windows. So how am I going to know where north is? So, but what you should know is that every time that you see a compass or you know the directions, it's always in the same way around. So you don't switch them up, and you can't say that south is at the top and then west is over on the right. It always goes in a clockwise direction from north to east to south to west. And there's actually, some people have some rhymes to go along with that. I've heard never eat shredded wheat. I don't know if people know what shredded wheat is, but I've always used never eat soggy waffles. So if you go around the clock, that's how you can kind of remember. Never eat soggy waffles means north, east, south, and west. Okay, so you might actually recognize some of these landmarks here, okay? So if you look at them, can you recognize them enough to know which part of the island they're on? I see a couple of lighthouses. Anybody know where those are? So, Braxton, do we have any answers in there about where they are?
Yeah, we got one saying, Hannah said Gibbs Hill. Oh, that's Hannah.
Gibbs Hill, okay, yes, there's Gibbs Hill Lighthouse, yeah.
I got Dockyard.
Dockyard, definitely Dockyard's a good one, yeah.
St. David's.
St. David's Lighthouse. Does anybody know if that's on the east or the west end? It's in the way east end. So if you recognize things like this, it can help you to tell people how to get from one place to another. And that's one way to navigate. So there are some landmarks that people know around Bermuda. If I had to give directions to my house, for instance, I might say that I live in Devonshire Parish. And that gives people an idea that I live in central part of the island. But if I wanted to be more specific, I might tell them that I live close to a squash club and an animal hospital. And if I was talking to somebody that went to school, I might tell them that I live near Elliott Primary School and kind of close to Summersfield as well. So if I wanted people to know where I lived, I might use something called a landmark. Now, a landmark is something that you find on land, but it's difficult to know unless you use these landmarks, how to get from place to place. And imagine what it would be like if you were traveling away from any of these landmarks and you were somewhere off the island in the ocean. So let's pretend we're going to go back to the 1700s or the 1800s. And if you were on our first episode, you'll see a ship like this, or you would have seen a ship like this. And pretend that you were actually one of the lucky sailors that was on that boat, and you decided to cross the Atlantic Ocean. Now imagine in every direction, this is the view that you would see. Okay. Now, if that's the view that you're seeing, there are no more landmarks, right? Because there's no more land. And imagine that you're heading into the open ocean and you have to go west for weeks on end. And then some days are calm like this. And if it was this calm, you probably wouldn't get very far because you'd need the wind to carry you a little bit on those sails. But on other days, they might have big waves or storms, high seas, and it might actually throw you off of your directions. How do you know where you're going at that point? And then where you're going to be heading? Does anybody have any idea of what the act of directing, there's a big word that is used for moving from one place to another, what that word is? I've used it before. Does anybody have any guesses? You can type it into the chat box, put it in. So moving from one place to another is a word that we use called?
Somebody said navigation.
Navigation, that's right. So navigation is our word for actually directing either a ship or an aircraft or anything that would be moving from one place to another. It's also the science of finding your way from one place to another. So in navigation, you need a couple of tools that'll help you to point in the ways that you want to go, especially if you're at sea. But you can also kind of use these when you're on land at home. Okay, so let's look at a couple of these. One example is a compass. I don't know how many of you have had the chance to use a compass before, but I've got one right here. And this compass actually is oriented so that it spins around a little bit. So I have to actually turn the part at the bottom so that it points in the same direction, so that north is in the same direction. This is telling me that north is behind me, okay? So, and at your place, it might be something completely different because I can't see where you are, but if you were using a compass, it's going to be pointing north. Now, how does that work? That's a really interesting thing. I've got a globe here, okay, and with the globe, you can actually see that it has a North Pole and a South Pole. We all know that, right? But there is actually a magnetic field. And if you look at this picture that I have here, you can see that there's a North magnetic pole and a South magnetic pole. And it's not exactly directly in line with where the geographic North Pole is, but it is really key to help us orient because the compasses actually pick up that magnetic field and it orients toward that as well. Okay, so and that way it will always point north because it's sensing the magnetic field that the Earth naturally has. Okay, so while I give Braxton some time to just check the chat for any questions, I want to show you something that you might be inspired to do at home. It's on our activity sheets that we have the additional activities, and that is making a compass. You would need something like a bowl of water, a needle, and maybe even a bent paper clip if you don't have a needle. I've got a pretty big one right here. And so if you have that, then you can actually also, you need a magnet, and you'll need to have something that this needle can sit on or actually sit in. So I've got a piece of little styrofoam here. So what I've done is I'm just going to do this very quickly, and then I'm going to leave it to you to go to the additional activities on the sheet. You just go and you magnetize both ends of the needle. I'm going to magnetize the other end of the needle. And once again, you can use a bent paper clip, unbent paper clip, so it's nice and straight. And then what I do is I put it into, you can use a piece of cork too, just put it kind of in here so that it will make sure that this floats on top of water instead of dropping into the water. And if I put this into the water, oh, can you see? It's actually tilted, it's turned, and if you look at the compass, you should see they're pretty much orienting the same way. So that's something that you should try at home. See if you can do it with maybe more than one magnet, or just try different things and see what happens. Okay, were there any questions, Braxton?
Yeah, I got a question for you, Julie. People are wondering, when was the first compass invented?
So the first compass was invented a really long time ago. In fact, it was about 2,000 years ago, even earlier than zero. It was in the BC era, and that was by the Chinese. They think that they actually took a magnetic stone and they were able to orient that. And so imagine, so if we knew that there was this magnetism in the Earth and then we could use that to help us, then that would be one way that we can navigate. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question for you. Somebody wants to know, am I a landmark since I am on land?
Are you a landmark? Well, you're actually moving. So if you were actually stationary, then you could be a landmark. But yeah, you could be for temporary time, but I wouldn't count on it because you might move from one place to another. And I couldn't say, go and find Braxton and that will point you to where you need to go because he might move. Okay. So another way that sailors navigated and charted their course was they actually started mapping, and once they knew kind of how to divide up the Earth, they used that to start to put it into sections. And so those sections are actually lines of latitude and longitude. Okay, so the way that I remember latitude and longitude is a latitude has the letter T in it. So when I think about that, I can take my hair and I can make a T out of my head and my hair, and the latitude is actually the lines that go across this way. Now longitude actually are the lines that go up and down. So my long hair goes north to south, or long going up and down. And that's how they divide it up. Latitude goes from the equator, and that is marked at 0, and then it goes all the way up to 90 degrees. So they can take this into sections, and then longitude actually starts near England at what they call the prime meridian, right about here. And it divides up the whole circle into 360 degrees, but 180 degrees to the west and 180 degrees to the east. So if you look at where Bermuda is, here you can actually see the sections that a globe has been, or a map has been sectioned off to. And you could actually read this so that it's 32 degrees north, basically. So that would be from the equator, I'd go up 30 degrees and then 2 more. And then I'd also go from that prime meridian and I'd go over to the west by 64. And when I did that, I would find Bermuda. So latitude and longitude. Using a tool called a sextant, a captain could find the angle between the sun and the horizon, and if they knew what time it was, these are pretty special instruments. If they knew what time it was, they could then compare it to where the sun would be at the same time in the country where they came from, like England, and that would help to determine their longitude. So you'd have to have actually a really accurate timekeeper, like a really good clock. And that was sometimes hard to come by on a ship, especially with the ship rocking and everything else and all the corrosion. It was very difficult. So when they didn't have to use sextants anymore, they could be a bit more accurate, but that took many hundreds of years. So another way that they could navigate was using the stars. Sailors could find north by knowing some of the constellations. In this time-lapse picture, you can see that throughout the night, almost all of the stars will change position, except for there's that one star in the middle. Okay, see that dot? That's called Polaris, and you're actually going to have a chance to learn a little bit more about constellations with Hannah. But that one star, Polaris, points in a particular direction. I bet you can guess which direction it is. It's called the North Star, so it points north. Okay, but is this how we navigate today? No, not at all. So navigation, we could use these and it's still reliable, it still works, but nowadays we have satellites that are helping us to navigate, and it makes it very difficult to get lost because there's so many of them up in orbit that they help us to locate where everybody is. So if you have a phone or your family has a phone and you want to know where to go, now all the navigation is done for you because it pinpoints where you are and where you want to go, and it basically gives you all the directions that you need, even if you were on the ocean. Okay, technology is so amazing. All right, if I were hovering over BUEI, here's a satellite image that would be taken by these types of satellites, and it could show me kind of what a map of the top of BUEI looks like. But you could actually drill out or go zoom out or zoom in and see, even you could try this on Google Earth or Google Maps for yourself and see what your area looks like. If you know your address, then it can help you find that. Okay. So we're getting ready to make a star viewer with Hannah. Before we go, are there any other questions that we might have?
Yeah, Julie, I got one for you.
Okay.
How many satellites are in space?
So satellites, there are so many that are being added all the time, but just about in general, there are probably about 2,000. The last time I checked, there were about 2,600 satellites orbiting in space, and they're orbiting at different kind of levels up in space. So there are low Earth orbit ones, and those are the ones that if you were to look in the sky, you could actually see something that looks like a star moving, and it's the reflection of light onto those satellites. So if you see something that looks like a star moving, that's probably a satellite. And with 2,600 of them in the sky, that's a lot. So.
Nice. And I got one more for you. Somebody asks, how do people go into space with satellites in the way?
How do people go into space? Say that one more time.
How do people go into space with satellites in the way?
with satellites in the way. Well, there are people on the ground that are definitely making sure that none of those satellites are in the way when they send somebody into orbit. So if they're going to the International Space Station, they've charted a course for them, and they make sure that the satellites are not in their airspace when they're doing that. That's an interesting question. All right, I want to make sure that you have time to do this activity, so I'm going to hand it over to Hannah.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Miss Hannah, if you didn't learn that in the last episode. But yeah, so in today's lesson, we are going to talk about stars in the sky and how they're used to navigate. And we're going to do a fun little craft that goes along with it. I hope you've all had a chance to gather your materials for this activity. But if you haven't done so, please do so now before we start. I'm just going to share with you my PowerPoint on a couple of these stars. Right. So stars in the sky. So first we need to talk about what is a constellation. So a constellation is a group of visible stars that form a pattern when viewed from Earth. The pattern can often form, The pattern can often form and take the shape of animals and mythological creatures like a man, woman, or an object. Many of the constellations we look at today were discovered over 2,000 years ago by ancient Greece. So there's a picture of the constellations that you can see. It's kind of like connecting the dots. So what is a star? A star is basically a really huge ball of hot gas that can be seen in many different colors. You can see in this image here, all those different colors. You're going to type what colors that you see. Yeah, so this is an image that was taken by a Hubble telescope, and it's really, really close up. Of course, it doesn't look like that when we stand out in the night sky at night. But deep in the center of all these stars, they generate an enormous amount of energy. And the energy travels through the star and is given off as heat and light. And that's what allows it to glow. Can anybody tell me what the closest star is? Where's the chat? Anybody know? So it's the sun. The sun is a star. And so many stars are actually much, much bigger than the sun, but you can imagine how it's 93 million miles away and we're getting that heat from Earth, right, that warms us. So you can imagine how hot some of these other stars are. And here I have is a little example of how big some of these stars can be. So there's a little Earth down there, and this is the sun. And then if you compare it, the sun's here, and then these are some of the other stars. So Sirius is one that we're also going to look at. It's the brightest star in the night sky, and it's in one of the constellations that we are going to work on today. So the first one we're looking at is the Big Dipper. This is probably one of the most famous ones. It can be found in the low north sky at night. And the two stars on the end actually point to the Little Dipper, or specifically the North Star. You can see here, Merak and Dubhe are the two stars that point in a straight line right to the last little bit of the Little Dipper, so that they look like two little fishing nets or dip nets, or spoons, ladles. Yeah, so then there's Polaris. So Miss Julie just talked to us a little bit about Polaris. So the significance of Polaris is here. It's special because the Earth's northern axis nearly points to its location in the sky. So I also have a picture like the one that Miss Julie showed of a long exposure image that's taken of all the star trails. So those are the stars that are rotating around that North Star, or Polaris. And it can be used then as a reference point. So if you stand tonight, if you can find the North Star, I want you to stand and look at it with your head and put your arms out like Miss Julie was saying about the compass. And so your right arm will point due east, and then the back of your head is west, and then your left arm point due west. So never eat sour watermelon. That's my version of it, I guess. You can make it up. And then we have Orion. This is my favorite constellation. We have here in the sky is made up of 7 stars. 7 stars are, you can see the picture on the right is sort of, that's how he looks in the sky, very bright. And often It's found in the southwest around this time of year, so you should be able to see him tonight. I saw him yesterday. And then the belt is usually what you should look for. So it's those 3 bright stars that are in line like that. And this constellation is used to orientate and find a lot of other constellations because it's basically the easiest one to find. And you can see this is the Greek hero Orion. He was a hunter, and this is sort of the image that they would have made around the constellation. So he has got a lion's hide and a club in his hand. And there's 2 really important stars that you need to know on Orion. There's this bright orange one that's called Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. It's kind of how it sounds. And it is bright red, and it's 20 times larger than the sun. And then there's this one, Regal, which is called the super blue giant. They think that it's much colder, and that's maybe why it's got the blue color. And it's 70 times larger than the sun. So that's one that you should definitely look out for tonight. And then we have Canis Major, which is basically the great dog. And what you'll see is on this picture on the right here, it looks more like a little stick man. And that's sort of how I find it in the sky off Orion. And these 3 really bright stars from Canis Major, Orion, and Canis Minor create the winter triangle. So Sirius, that star that I showed you at the very beginning, is the brightest star in the sky. And yeah, so here's an example of how much larger it is than the sun. And yeah, you should be able to see that one tonight if you can find Orion. And the last one that I've got is Cassiopeia and Andromeda. So Cassiopeia was the ancient queen of Ethiopia, from ancient Ethiopia. And so she can be found as sort of a W in the sky. This is also found more in the south, and often easier to find in the fall. So I don't know, I wasn't able to find it last night, but throughout the summer and towards the end of summer, they should start appearing. So Cassiopeia, and her daughter was Andromeda. And Andromeda is like this weird little V shape, but those are the images that you can see there. But yeah, and between those 2 is the Andromeda Galaxy, which is the second closest galaxy after our own, the Milky Way. So there's some really cool things to see between those constellations. And then, so we're going to go into doing the craft now. And so, yeah, I hope you've got all your materials, and I will play this video and you can do it along with me. I'm going to decorate my telescope while we're at it. And yeah, if you have any questions, just ask in the chat box.
Hi, everybody. So we are going to make stargazing constellation cards and a telescope. So the first thing that you will need is a paper towel tube or a toilet paper roll, whichever one that you have in your house at the time. The printable constellation card. So you can find this on our BUEI website and print it out. I printed it on cardstock, but if you have regular printer paper, that's all right. Just mount it on a piece of construction paper so that it lasts a little longer. And then a foam tray. It can also be a piece of styrofoam. The purpose of this is just to protect your table from pinning the holes of your constellation. And then for securing it at the end, a piece of yarn and a hole puncher. And scissors, of course. You'll need that for all of the crafts. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut these out. So the first one I've got here is Andromeda. And now we've just talked about all of these, but Andromeda is a female Greek goddess, and she can be found in the autumn skies in the south. So you'll have to watch out till after summer when we have the different constellations, but this is Andromeda. Canis Major is actually
Unmute your mic, Hannah.
It's muted.
southwest.
Hannah, keep it unmuted so we can hear the video.
Orion. Cassiopeia is also in the southern part of the sky. And Orion is my favorite constellation. He can easily be identified with his belt
the belt that you have right here, these 3 stars create quite a prominent line in the sky in the southwest. And he can be seen today. So maybe tonight, if you go out, you can see Orion, and Canis Major is just off the side there. And actually that top star there and that star and one other create the winter triangle in the sky. And then the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper. So these are probably the most famous of the constellations. They can be found both sort of in the northeast north. The Little Dipper, these last 2 stars on the Little Dipper actually point to the North Star. That was key in navigating for the time of GPS and electricity. All right, so now you've got all of these cut out. I hope you've been cutting along with me. And you can... So you're going to take your foam tray and you're going to take your pin and you're going to pin a hole into all the stars. If it's a bigger hole, create a bigger hole. If it's a little star, create a little one. So the stars that are smaller are actually further away than the larger ones. And if you see a red star ever, so on Orion, the star right here, this star is red. It's actually a dying star. And so it's been dying for millions of years, but because the light takes so long to travel to us, we're still seeing that light. So hopefully, I mean, it'll still be there in our lifetime. All right, you're gonna pin a hole into all of these. Andromeda. I haven't seen Andromeda in the sky yet. I'm excited to have a look after the summer when the constellations change. But the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper and Orion is something that you can probably spot in every night sky. So I hope that tonight, if it's a beautiful evening, you'll go out there and look for them and use those compass skills as well that you're gonna learn. Great, okay, so I've got all my stars pinned. Now, I'm gonna take my telescope. So I urge you to decorate it, right? This is ugly. You wanna put some construction paper on it, or glitter, or paint, or pipe cleaners, whatever you have in your craft box to decorate. This one's mine, this is my telescope. So what you're gonna do first is you're going to take your card and you're gonna put it up against the telescope and have a look through. Put it up to the light and you can see the beautiful constellation that's shining down the tube at you. So, and this is a really cool way to get your head around the shape that you're looking for in the sky. And another cool way of using this is if you make your room dark and you put your constellation cards in here and you take a flashlight and you shine it against the card, you'll actually see a little projection of those stars in your room. So try with different flashlights and see how big you can make that as a fun little activity for you to do at home. And the final thing I want you to do is, so that you don't lose all of your cool little constellation cards, is take your hole puncher and just punch a hole in it. See if this will go all the way through. And a piece of yarn or a key ring or a flashcard clip thing, whatever, just to keep them together so that they don't become junk. And I hope you enjoyed this and let us know how it goes. And yeah, see you next time.
All right, cool. Well, please take pictures for us and you can share them. And Miss Shania is going to let you know how to do that in a moment. Before I turn over, does anybody have any questions for me? Anything that they want to know? Did we catch anything?
I got one question for you, Hannah. Somebody asks, is there such thing as a Phoenix constellation?
Ooh, a Phoenix constellation. There sure is. Phoenix is also part of the Greek mythology. I don't know exactly where it is in the sky, but there is such thing as the Phoenix constellation.
Good.
I think there's
That's all
a
the
Phoenix.
questions I got.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to turn on over to Miss Shania, and she is going to tell you on other activities that you can do and also how to share these cool crafts with us, because we'd love to see your telescopes. And yeah.
Along with these activities that you've made with Ms. Hannah, you can also share your activities that you've done at home. If you go onto the BUEI webpage and scroll down to where you've downloaded the materials and the worksheets, you can also click on the QR code for the Padlet site where you can upload your pictures. So take a picture of what you made and upload it to the Padlet site. You can show us and everyone that's joining in this call what you've made at home. We all can't wait to see what you've created.
All right, thank you, Ms. Shania. I'm looking forward to seeing all those cool crafts you guys put together. Keep in mind that Braxton is always looking in the chat if you guys have any questions, but we're gonna move on to the next segment, which is called our call to action. So my name is Hannah and I am the Eco Schools coordinator here at BUEI. So Eco Schools is a global program that helps to inspire and reward eco clubs in schools for making sustainable changes. BUEI is the national operator here in Bermuda, which means we help you along the way by giving you all the resources and an easy little schedule to follow to make sure you succeed. So by a show of virtual thumbs up, how many of you are part of an eco school or part of your eco club here in Bermuda? No virtual thumbs up? Oh, I see some me's in the chat. Okay, it's great to see that some of us are working on being more eco in our schools and even in our homes as well. So what is the connection with eco schools and navigation? So one of the pathways we offer here at Eco Schools Bermuda is called Marine and Coast. This pathway highlights marine and coastal habitats around our island, how people are affecting these habitats, and what kind of ways we can work towards protecting them. So first, I want you guys to get those fingers ready in the chat, and I want us to think about what kind of marine and coastal habitats we have here. Let me see those answers in the chat. What kind of things do we see in our oceans? Okay, I got coral reefs, yeah, so we definitely have lots of coral reefs around Bermuda. We have 3 types and they surround our whole island. Oh, I see mangroves, yeah, mangroves and seagrasses. These are great fish nurseries that are around our coastal environments. And I also see fish and sharks, yeah, so we also have a great shallow and deep water ocean around us with lots of really cool marine animals. Nice job, guys. So secondly, we want to look at how we are affecting these habitats. So today, we've learned all about how we can navigate the oceans to take voyages across the sea. However, ocean navigation is not a specialty anymore. There are lots of people that travel the oceans these days, whether it's for recreation, whether it's for fishing, or whether it's for the delivery of goods. So I'm going to share my screen quickly right now to show you how many boats are on the ocean at this exact moment. So right now, oh, I'm just going to move this across. So right now, these are all the boats that are in the world right now. We've got green boats that represent our cargo vessels. We've got the red boats that represent our oil tankers. And we've got lots of other colors that represent either fishing boats or passenger vehicles like a cruise ship. So this is what the world looks like right now. Can anybody guess how many boats are on the ocean right now? How many boats do we think that is? Let me see those fingers in the chat. Not a million. And not just 20. I see some more. So right now, there's actually over 200,000 boats on the water at one time. Let's take a little closer look. So this is what it looks like just around Bermuda and around the Caribbean. Lots of boats out on the open water and lots of boats on our coast as well. And it's not only the Caribbean. We also have lots of boats around the UK and in the Mediterranean Sea. And we also have lots of boats, just gonna go one more slide over, lots of boats in Southeast Asia and in the Asian seas. So do we think this is good or bad for the ocean? This cannot be good. Exactly. So let's get some fingers back in the chat. Why do we think this is bad for the ocean, having all of these ships on the water at once? What are some of the reasons why this is bad? Right, I see pollution, right? So a lot of these boats are motorized, so lots of air pollution or oil leakage or gas leakage. Yeah, I see fuel. Yes, overfishing. There's lots of fish, a lot of boats taking fish out. What about animal impact? So a lot of the animals that live in the ocean, especially our marine mammals, come to the surface to breathe. And that's exactly where the boats are going to be. So we have lots, scaring animals, pollution, right? So these are some of the reasons why having so many boats in the ocean is such a problem. So what can we do about it? What are some solutions that we can work on? The first thing is to work on how you use the ocean when you are boating. So you need to be aware of the marine environments around you. Make sure not to drive over shallow coral reefs, and make sure when you're dropping your anchor down that you're not dropping it on reefs or on mangroves or on seagrasses, but that you're only dropping it on soft sand or mud. Another thing we can do is we can reduce our need for these ships out on the water. We can reduce our fish intake, so we're not causing so many fishing boats to go out and collect our food. We can also reduce our use of these delivery vehicles. So we can stop with our Amazon shipping, we can make sure we shop local. We can also decrease our need for imported vegetables or imported food. If we focus on having our own gardens or going to farmers markets, we can keep our carbon footprint small and keep those shipping boats off the water and save our marine animals a little bit. All right, so those are my 2 suggestions, and that's my call to action for our topic here today. I'm going to swap over to Braxton. Do we have any questions that we've got on this topic?
Yeah, Hannah, what happens if the farmer market doesn't have our favorite vegetables?
Oh, exactly. So the farmer's market only has the vegetables that are in season. So for example, we have carrots that come in the winter versus strawberries, which are in season right now, and melons, which are only in season in the summer. So some months of the year, you're not going to get all of your favorite fruits and vegetables, but the fruits and vegetables that are in season always taste a little better. So always good to follow what the season is going.
Somebody asks, is sailing good?
Is sailing good? So sailing is a more sustainable way of traveling the oceans as you're not using petrol or oil. We talked a little bit about that on Monday. So yeah, it's a more sustainable way, but it's still another boat on the water. So as long as we reduce our need to be on the water and we're really sustainable and we watch what we're doing when we're on the water, I think it's okay to sail. All right, so I think we're done for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to show one quick video to end my segment. So I'm going to show a video of a local school here in Bermuda who is actually an eco school working on this marine and coast pathway. So we're going to hear from Principal Fox and the head girls over at Francis Patton right from their school dock. And this video comes from Green Rock's Earth Hour.
So one of the questions were, what would you like the area of focus to be for the student lighthouse team? And many of them had talked about the environment and caring for our environment. They were very concerned about the hurricanes that were coming through and sort of messed with our ecosystem a little bit. So a lot of them wanted to make sure that we were maintaining Bermuda's status being like this beautiful, clean country, and that's something that they wanted to focus on. I was looking for a focus for our kids, and I think it just ended up being this perfect marriage. So BUEI reached out to me and gave me some information, and we just took off from there. It was really exciting, and introducing to the kids, they were just super excited about it, and they came with about 10, 12 suggestions already about what we can do. So seeing them excited made me feel like this was the right way to go. We see that it's just reverberating around campus already, and we're very early on in this process, but I can see other kids are looking to join and help us to be, more sustainable at Francis Patton Primary School. And hopefully we can inspire other schools and other areas in the community to be even more sustainable and care for our environment.
I know that 3 of us girls from P6, we cleaned up yesterday, and we are going around looking at our environment that is close around us, and we are picking up trash, trying to help to solve things that may be dangerous for us and the ocean animals. I am getting very excited about step 3 and step 4 to know that we are finishing our steps and to be able to complete our school's ecosystem.
I believe we decided to focus on the environment because it has a lot of work we can do, like pick up some glass, clear some trees from the hurricane, and we could probably make shelters if another hurricane was to hit. I found that it was pretty exciting knowing that we're gonna be helping clean up the environment and making it safer for the animals.
So guys, you finished our sustainability audit. You did awesome work. Let's kiss our brains to celebrate. Awesome job, guys. Well done.
We hope you had fun and learned something new today. On behalf of the BUEI crew, I'd like to thank you for joining us on this adventure. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now.
All right, well, thank you again for coming to today's session on navigation. I hope you are making some things and trying some things out that you hadn't done before. If you have any last questions or last buys, we're here just to say thank you, but also to see if there are any last questions before we move on. Don't forget to come back on Friday. We'll be back again at 10 for our very last session on the Voyages at Sea. We're so glad you can join us. I see one, do boats hurt fish? They can, but we can also learn how to be mindful of how fast we're going in certain types of waters. We could also make sure that we're doing things to keep our boats nice and clean and making sure that pollutants don't go into the water. So there are ways that they could hurt fish, but we can also learn how to manage the way that we use our boats. See a lot of byes and a lot of thank yous. It's nice to see. Bye, everybody. Don't forget to also share what you are making. If you made something on Monday and you haven't shared it yet, that Padlet site is still up. You still have time. We're actually going to be drawing for a prize for each of those episodes from the ones that we see. So make sure that if you have time, you can go ahead and make things like the treasure map. You can make the star viewer. You can make the boat in a jar or the ship in a jar from last time. So still plenty of time to do those things. And if you have time at home, then that's a great way to spend it.